Okay, so to begin with, I'm going to show you kind of what we're doing today. I've got 3 images here. So here's the image shot in the studio. Here's the background image I decided to put with it. And then here's the combination of the 2 images here. So to begin with, I'm just going to load both the portrait and the background image into Photoshop into separate documents to begin with. We'll take a look at this one a little bit later. Now it's going to ask me to, when you're opening from a raw file, it's going to ask you to go through and color correct and do your basic things. Now, one of the reasons why I wanted to shoot with a gray background is it does 2 things for us. One, it allows us to get a neutral color cast, so I can white balance to that image very quickly. And the second is it will not blend in with either highlights or shadows like a white or a black background would. It's much harder to cut out a subject from a white background or a black background. Now, you can use a green screen. We see green screen over here. The challenge with that, in my opinion, is that so often the color, if it's going to be a color image, so often the color is going to reflect into the skin tones. And so I'm not as crazy about that for still photography. We have to use it for video, but for high quality still imagery, there's a little bit of an issue with the color blending into the skin tones or reflecting into the skin tones. So I'm just doing a real basic color correction on this image here. Okay. And the first thing I'm going to do with this image is I'm going to create a duplicate background, or a duplicate layer, I should say. And now I have the image right there. I'm going to take this background and I'm going to edit and fill it with white, so I can see very quickly as I go whether or not I've made a good selection or not. Now there's 2 basic tools that I'm going to use for this. This is pretty well lit. It's going to be very easy to do. That's the advantage of having that nice even background on there. There's 2 basic tools I'm going to use. First thing I'm going to do, just to show you, if all else fails and you just don't remember how to do it or it's not working right, I want you to know how to use a layer mask. So we're going to use a layer mask, and I'll just put reveal all, and I'm going to select my brush tool down here, B for brush, and you can learn your keystroke commands by hovering over a tool and see what the letter is. So B for brush. And when masking for a photograph, I don't want the hardness set to 0% on my brush. I want it set to 50%. What's interesting about this, if I go to 100%, I'm going to look like a cutout, right? It's going to be very herky-jerky. Let me zoom in on that. Okay, and you can see it's just got a hard edge to it, right? So I'm going to undo that, and we'll use the history palette for that real quick and go back to our layer mask here. The interesting thing about a photograph is there's no such thing as a sharp photograph, and so a hardness of about 50 works pretty well. I use a brush of 0% hardness for dodge and burn because I want those effects to be camouflaged and blend in very smoothly. So generally I'm setting my hardness to 0 for a dodge burn, and if I'm doing a mask, I'm setting it at 50%. Okay. And what I want you to notice, I'll turn off the background for a minute so you can really see this. If I paint with black on a layer mask, I am hiding, okay? And I'm getting rid of what's there. I'm not doing anything to the image area, I'm just simply masking it out. So in a worst case scenario, I could do a very slow, painstaking job to come in here and mask that out. Now you notice there's a slight feather to it, but when I go to combine that to the background image, We want those images not to look like paper dolls cut out, but rather that you are setting it into the background image. Okay? So I'm going to go ahead and delete that layer mask and start over. Okay, and we're back to where we were. So I've got my brush ready to go for touch-up work, and then the other tool that works really well is the quick selection tool. Now under the quick selection tool we have a magic wand tool, and I'll tell you that's another favorite tool for this sort of work as well, is that I have a tolerance in here, and I can set that to like a 16 tolerance in here, and it will just very quickly select, and if I hold down the shift key it'll add to that selection. And I will tell you that once I've done that, that actually worked remarkably well, didn't it? You'd think I'd planned this or something. I'm going to go to a layer mask, and I'm going to say, oh, you know what? I want to hide the selection. So what it's going to do is fill that in with black. Okay? And that actually worked remarkably well. Now the neat thing about using a layer mask is that if it cut out something, if I zoom in here and I go, oh, well that's not very good on this hat area. Let me zoom in really close so we can see that. The neat thing about a layer mask is if I use my brush tool and I paint white, and I'll get a nice small brush in here, if I paint white, the information's still there. So it's a non-destructive method of being able to come in and clean up those edges. Okay, now here I've started to show the background, so I'd actually reverse that out, and I can come in here and shape that smoothly around. Okay, so that's one technique, the quick mask or the quick selection tool. I'm going to delete that. I'm going to show you another technique that is the one that I would like you to use. And it's similar to the magic wand tool, and that is the quick selection tool. So I'm going to set, using my bracket tools, I'm going to select a brush size, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to click and drag and I'll show you a couple of things about this tool. It's just kind of like a roving magic wand tool. It's finding the borders Oh, and there I have a problem. Okay, so that I went too far. So I'm going to deselect that. So if I go to select and I'm going to say deselect, which is right here at Command D, deselect, and I'm going to start over here. Now that went into his jacket just a little bit because I started too far in. I'm not going to worry about that. I can touch that up later. I'm going to just come in here, and I'll tell you what I find works really well is once I get to that spot where I know it's getting a little tricky, I'm going to let go and just select that area. Once I've got a selection, I've got two keystrokes that I can use to either add or delete from that selection. If I hold down the Shift key, I will add to my selection. If I hold down the Option key, you'll see a little negative sign show up. I can actually come back and clean that area up along that jacket that I'd previously selected part of it. It's the coolest thing, right? So now I'm going to come up here and go ahead and add to my selection. And periodically, it's almost like what we used to use with the magnetic lasso tools. Periodically, I find that it works better if I just stop and then shift and tell, oh, there it went too far. I'm going to hold down the Option key and not worry about it, and I'm going to come back and I can clean up those little areas later. And I'll just come all the way out here, and it's just going to grab everything pretty straightforward. Okay? Now, I've got everything kind of selected here. I'm going to go to my layer mask and hide selection. Okay? Now I can go in here and take a look and go, oh, I lost a little bit of underneath the hat here. So I'll click on, so here when you see the little brackets around the image, I'm actually painting over the pixels that are the image area. When I click on the layer mask and I see the little brackets here, I'm only painting black or white or a shade of gray on the layer mask. So now I'll come in here with my brush tool, and I will hit the X key. Allows me to very quickly toggle between white and black on my default colors. If I had a color selected, you'll notice it shows up as a gray scale because I'm on that mask. If I go to the actual pixel and select a color, it selects the actual color. But I actually want to default to the black and white. Click onto my layer mask, and I'm going to paint white just very quickly to bring back that area underneath the hat. And I'm going to come in here, I'll zoom in a little closer and see what's going on. Okay, now I'm getting a little bit of the background, so I'm going to toggle to the black and just clean up that edge. And I'll come in here again, fill in just any little areas that I just need to clean up. It's a lot faster to just do a little cleanup afterwards. Here I need to clean out the gray, so I'll use the black again. And I actually don't like that kind of wrinkle there. I'm going to go ahead and paint a little white and see if there's more to the hat. Yep, there we go, there is. See if I got an ear nubbin kind of messed up there. Okay. Now I'm not going to worry about retouching his face. That's a whole nother topic of conversation in there. And actually what I'm going to do here now is I'm just going to duplicate that layer real quick. I just want to take a look and see. I'll throw away this layer mask real quick in here. So I just want to see, what am I missing? Oh, I've got a big section there, don't I? So I'll come back on here and get my white. Make sure I'm not losing his ear nubbin, because I'll be able to touch that up once I get it combined with the background image. Okay, now I'm just going to look to see if there's anything going on here. I'm missing part of the shoulder, so I'll just come in here and touch that up. Oops, need my white. And there I can see the background starting to show through. And I'll go back to my black and just feather that out just a little bit. And I probably am losing something in this area here, so I'll go ahead and just bring that back. And when it comes to compositing, I'm just trying to make it believable. I'm not trying to worry about, it's never going to be actually perfect. It's really about camouflaging, creating an optical illusion for the viewer. There I start to see a little bit of an edge. I'll clean up that edge too. I think I'm missing some fabric there. Okay. So when I look at it, it looks fairly believable, don't you think? Okay. So now I'm going to save that file, and I'm going to save it. I like to save things as Photoshop files. The way my file formats work, I save Photoshop files with layers. That's my edit file. And I save TIFF files as a flattened, uncompressed file format. That's my optimum full resolution file. And then I save JPEGs for primarily web and or print output to a lab where I'm uploading over the internet, because most labs only accept JPEG files for uploading, so Costco, that sort of thing, or R&R Color Lab. I'm making a JPEG file, Miller's, MPix, any of those online lab resources. I make a JPEG with an sRGB color profile for printing. So for me, this is a uncompressed, but it's multiple layers, so I will save that as a PSD file, and I will just call that Cody cutout. So I have a work file there. Okay. Now I'm going to go to my background image. Neon background image, and I look at this image, and it's like, okay, it works okay. I think I can enhance it a little bit. New adjustment layer, levels. I'm not changing the color on it because it's a sunset. I want it to have whatever warm color it has, but I am going to darken it up a little bit to make it a little more dramatic. Okay, and that's just an adjustment layer there. Okay, and that's about all I'm going to do with this image file. Now I'll go back to the Cody cutout, and I'm going to take this layer and I'm going to go layer, duplicate layer, and under the destination I'm going to tell it to put it in my neon background image. Okay? So now, because I have a mismatch, I'd previously worked on that other background image, I'm not going to worry about it. I'm just going to say go ahead and work with the destination color profile. And I'm going to go to the background image there. Okay. And I'm going to use the move tool, which is V is the move tool, and I'm going to move him into position. And I'm going to transform, which is edit, free transform, Command T, and if I hold down the Shift key, I can adjust the size relative to the background image. And I'm just trying to make it look reasonably good, and I seem to have lost my adjustment layer. Let me put that back in there. I'm not sure what happened. Maybe I forgot to save that. So I'm going to go ahead and add my adjustment layer, bring that down. Okay. And then I'm going to come back to this image and close that out. I'm going to do a couple of things. One, I see a distraction here that I don't really need. The other thing I'm going to do is there was a nice reflection going on of the neon in a window that's been darkened too much. So I'm going to use my B for brush tool. I'm going to use black color, and I'm going to go ahead and see that, get that back in there, and I even kind of like the car going on in there as well. So I'll bring that back. But what I don't like, I'll create a new layer. So layer, new, Command Shift N. You'll learn your keystroke commands as you do this a while. And that extra highlight I don't need, isn't going to help me at all. So I'm going to use the spot retouch, spot healing brush, and make a brush that's just larger than that light source. And I'm going to say sample all layers, and I'm going to eliminate that very quickly. Okay. Now here's where it gets interesting. First of all, I'm going to go ahead and click on the layer mask, and I'm going to hold down the Option key, and that's going to show me that layer mask. Now I don't want to take any chance of having something working a little odd here, and occasionally you'll see a little thin line where maybe there's a little texture showing through. So I'm going to go ahead and use my magic wand tool, just the standard magic wand tool, select that. I'm going to fill that with black. So edit, fill, go to black, and now I'm going to deselect that, which is select, it's Command D, deselect. And I want to just make sure I've got a nice clean mask in here. Okay? And I come back over here. Okay? For some reason our computer's not updating that yet, but it will. So now the next thing I want to do, I'm actually going to duplicate this layer because I'm going to do something special here. And I'm going to turn off this layer here for a moment. And what I want to do is, in fact, I think I can bring that layer, I'm going to make that just a little bit more exciting. Bring that down just a little bit more. And then now I'll come back to this layer here, and I'll paint, and I'm going to adjust the opacity of my brush just a little bit to bring that sign back out a little bit. See, I was losing the arrow. So definitely want the sign, and I definitely want the reflection there. All right, we've got that. So now I've got this layer on top, and if you notice, his skin does not look the way I would expect. And in fact, the highlights on the jacket don't blend with the color of that sunset, or that sunrise in this case. So one of the things I'm going to do is I'm going to go to Image, Adjust, and I'm going to go to Match Color. Okay? Whenever you're doing a composite, it's important to try to match the colors. Okay? Now, what I do is I go to the background as the source, and I'm going to go to the background layer, and it's going to adjust that. Oh, that was kind of icky. Let's see what happens here. Yeah, that's not working. I'll tell you what, I'm going to undo that. That's why I created another layer here. So let me do this. I'm going to come in here. I'm going to select this part of the background. And I'm going to go Edit, Copy, Merge. Create a new document, and it'll be the exact size of that, and I'll say OK, and I will paste. What happened here? There we go. Paste that in there. I'll just name this real quickly and save it Sunset. Okay, turn my layer back on. We got Cody back in there. I'm going to deselect. So now I'll try this again. And the reason I'm doing it on separate layers is because I might not like it may go too far. Yeah, that's way too far, right? So now watch what happens though. If I lower the opacity, and I'll do a quick levels adjustment because I need to bring him back down into believable range. And now you'll see there's a, let's just do a before and after, okay? And I like what's going on with the coat, and I can actually come in here and paint on this mask a little bit. Actually, I'll undo that. Paint that in there. I'm just going to adjust the opacity just to blend that just a little bit. The human eye is terrible at overall color management, but it's really good at comparing differences, right? So I can just see a difference. See how white and cold that looks, and how that looks a little bit warmer. And now I might go ahead and come in and do another adjustment layer, only I'm going to select this background. Actually, I'll do it a couple of ways. There's always 6 ways to do it. I'm going to go ahead and I use the levels because I want to just darken without changing color, and I'm not paying attention. Well, actually, that's not bad. I could live with that. But if I wanted to leave the background alone, I could actually come and select this. I'll take a cleaner mask. There we go. Copy that and paste that mask in. So now that's only affecting Cody. That's getting reasonably believable at that point. Okay? And now the last thing I'm going to do, and I probably should have done this a little sooner, but that's okay. I'm going to come in here, and you see how cut out that looks? That is a fairly hard edge. So I'm going to take my magic wand tool, and I'm going to select just the black. I'm going to go to Select, Modify, and Expand. I'm going to expand by only 1 pixel. And then I'm going to go to Select, Modify, Feather. And I'm going to do a 5-pixel feather. And I'm just going to take my brush with 100% opacity, and I'm going to paint black around the edges. I'm actually going to have to copy this mask now. So let's just take a, let's turn this off for a minute. Okay, and let me go see if we can see a difference. I'm going to hide extras here. And so I'm just going to toggle . That really was a good selection. Let's see here. There, you can see it along that bright, take a look there, right along that crisp line of the jacket. Okay, let's go back to where I brushed it. See how that softened it? There's before, there's after. Yes? Okay. So, selecting it, expanding by 1 pixel, and then feathering it by 5 pixels allows that to just sit in there a little bit more. Now what I need to do is I need to copy that mask. See the whole image, select all, copy that because that's the master mask. I'm going to click on that and I'll paste it and replace it. There we go. Good. And then I have to decide whether or not I like that, even that much color. I might actually just pull it back just a little bit to make it a little more believable. Okay? Now I'm going to hit the F key to take a look at this without any, and deselect. And there's our combined image. Okay? Now I could go in and retouch the face and do all kinds of things in there. But for the basic retouch, that's where I'm at. Now, last thing I'm going to do. I'm going to create a duplicate background layer. And this is just kind of a bonus, extra fun. Okay, I'm going to take that background layer and I'm going to paint with black, literally right on there. And I'm going to wipe out the motel sign. And I'm going to wipe out the reflection. Boom. I'm going to go to Window and Timeline. You do not need to do this. I'm just showing you how I did this. Create a frame animation. And turn off this layer so I see the whole thing. I'm going to set it for a 1 second. Set this to forever. I'm going to create a new frame by clicking on this little paper icon. Turn on the layer that knocks that out. And I'm going to set that for ½ a second. And now, if I hit play, I've now created a neon blinking sign.